Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to a little Friday edition of the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. The draft guide ate me alive and spit me out.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I mean, that just shows how much work that was put into it, though.
For you guys. I'm tired for you guys. My wife, she said last night when I went to bed, she was like, "You haven't talked to me in 5 days." I'm like, I haven't. We're also in the midst of our rookie draft, or not rookie draft, our dynasty startup draft with our staff. It's a slow draft, but the entire day is filled with consistent conversations. So I guess I talk to the fantasy football team more than I talk to my wife as well.
Oh, definitely.
He says so definitely.
I've talked to them more than pretty much anybody in my life.
That's so funny. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. And today we are bringing you our tight end rankings for the 2020 season. We're going to give you the top 10, and the rest, you got to slap the guide. You got to go get the guide if you want to see the rest of our tight end rankings. So there you have it. Before we jump into tight end rankings, check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter at TheFFChamps, on Instagram at TheFantasyChampions. You can like us at Facebook.com/TheFantasyChampions. Subscribe wherever you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. If you are on YouTube, leave a comment. Click the bell for notifications. You know where it is. Click it. You get notifications about whenever we post content on our YouTube channel. So do that. And then leave a review if you're listening on any podcast platform. We also would like to tell you about the draft guide, which launched, July 1st. If you want to win your friggin' league, dude, if you want all of the content you need to win your league, all you got to do is purchase this little thing we call the draft guide. It has the full rankings, breakouts, busts, player breakdowns, draft values, all kinds of stuff in the guide. So be sure to check it out and purchase it. It is $25, and the price is going to stay there for the rest of the offseason. So if you purchase it, you still have a chance to be entered into our listener league. It's filling up. So please, for the love of God, just buy the draft guide. You need it. It's $25. It's cheap.
It's worth the purchase.
Think about the things you could buy for $25.
Yeah, it's either like
a pack of underwear at Walmart,
or
it's probably cheaper than $25 to be honest with you.
Yeah. Probably not even too large.
Yeah,
depending on where you go.
That's gross, dude.
It could be like one large cheese pizza and like a side of wings, or the draft guide.
Or the draft guide.
Help you win your league.
Yeah, it's a cheap expenditure considering dominating your friends for an entire regular season. So be sure to buy the draft guide. Let's jump into our tight end rankings. We're going to try to keep this brief. We got 10 tight ends to talk about, so we will do our best. Maybe 11, considering that me and Rick have two different guys. Yeah. And I'm going to explain to you why one of those guys I am out on. But, we're going to talk mostly about the consensus that we have, the consensus rankings that we have. So that's what we'll do. But let's get started. So the first guy on our list is Travis Kelce. I don't think there's any dispute Travis Kelce being the one.
No. I mean, there's a lot of people that like the number 2 guy.
Is there a number 2?
List.
Is there a number like I would say that there are people, like you said, there are people who want Kittle there, but Kittle's I've said this before. Kittle's a better tight end than the Kelce because tight end takes more than
I agree 100%
passing. But if you're talking about fantasy football, there's no way. And Travis Kelce is by far Patrick Mahomes' favorite target.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he gets more targets. He gets the same amount of targets, if not more than Tyreek Hill on a year-to-year basis. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I do like the upside of George Kittle. Like, I think he's in the same tier as Travis Kelce.
Right.
But I would definitely take Travis Kelce in redraft over George Kittle because, for one, I mean, the dude had – so when Mahomes went down, Kelce, I think, only had like 1 touchdown or no touchdowns. I don't remember correctly, but he didn't really explode. And Kelce had a down year for touchdowns. He only had 5 the whole season. The year before that, he had 10. So if Kelce gets like 8, which is around where he usually gets 7 or 8 touchdowns, he's going to be once again like a dominant top tight end. So I don't think there's really much to debate with Kelce. The only thing you can make the argument is he's, I believe, 31. So he's definitely on the back 9 of his career. Woo. Yeah, no,
Kittle's
he's 30.
Here.
He's 30.
Kittle is here to
31
stay
during the season.
Yeah,
and I think Kittle's only 26. So, but in redraft, it's not going to really affect much for this year, I think. But for the next 2 to 3 years, I think Kittle's going to take over that top spot.
So, my goodness, I feel like that's a lot with the projections that I have.
Are you looking at the projections for Kelce?
I'm looking at my projections for Kelce, and I'm it's making me a little nervous, and I want to pull up Player Profiler and just see how many targets he had last year, because I might need to readjust my love of Travis Kelce.
He had 135 2 years ago, I think.
Let's see. We got 136 last year.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I projected him at 150. Okay, I feel better about myself.
Yeah, that's tied for a career high. But
I think for a tight end, the second closest guy I have in the target share is George Kittle, and that's at 125. So, Travis Kelce getting targeted, if he's healthy, getting targeted as much as he has, is by far and away the number one guy. You know what I mean? He is. I would want to based on how many fantasy points he has, he's probably a wide receiver 9 if you were to put him in wide receivers. So it's where if you feel like the value matches where he's getting drafted, you know what I mean? And this is the way that I look at it with Travis Kelce when you're talking about drafting, is that we'll preface this entire episode by saying we don't draft tight ends early. We do not do that. It's a waste of time. Yeah. Unless that player equals the value of a wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, I also don't like to draft tight ends early because I think I can find a potential breaking tight end in
later
the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round where it's harder to do that for a running back or a wide receiver. With tight ends, I think TJ Hawkinson, who we'll get to, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki, guys like that, I think can all be top 5 tight ends this year, or at least one of them will, I think. So I just like the upside of drafting a tight end later. Yeah. But, if Kelce's there and nobody's taking him, don't be afraid to pull the trigger, because he can be top 10. If he was a wide receiver, he'd probably finish around the top 10 this year, I think.
If you're looking at 12-team half PPR ADP, Kelce's going off the board at 19 right now, 19.9. So let's just say 20. And if I say that he's going to be, he's technically a wide receiver 9, in order for him to match the value, he would have to go at ADP of 27. So that's why I don't draft Travis Kelce or George Kittle early, because I want him, if, the production is obviously there for either one of those guys, right? But I have a hard time looking at Travis Kelce's ADP at 19 and saying it's justified in that reach, because you have guys like Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, Amari Cooper, Julio Jones going off the board, where some people are going to take Travis Kelce. It's I'd much rather have those wide receivers than Travis Kelce.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if he's there
if he's there in the 3rd round,
because that's where, that's where I had him with the rankings. I had him 25th among all players. Mm-hmm. So if he's there, then I would definitely take him. But in most drafts, he goes in the 2nd round, mid-2nd round too.
And the other question,
I've even seen him go at the end of the 1st round in some of these.
The other question that you have to ask is the advantage of having a Travis Kelce that substantial? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think
or
it is
George
week
Kittle.
to week, because it's only a 5 to 6 point advantage on guys who are, at the bottom 10 among tight ends.
And my number 10 projected tight end and my number 1 projected tight end is about I want to say 100 fantasy point difference, which is huge. It's huge.
That is true.
But it's also when you, like you said, on a week to week basis, is a tight end. I feel like a quarterback's going to make more of a difference in your week-to-week fantasy production than a tight end would. You know what I mean? Because, you know, if like a tight end's not going to score you 35 fantasy points. It might happen like once a season.
It's probably not. You're probably not going to get. I mean, max, you're probably going to get like it has.
But your quarterback can probably get you 10 to 15 points over the other team's quarterback. Well, your tight end might score 15 points, but the other team's tight end might have a breakout week and score 10. So, like you said, the point differential is not that massive. It's also where you're
picking him, similar to a quarterback. Like that last tight end that you were talking about, your 10th tight end. For me, it's like a 75-point difference between Kelsey and my 10th tight end. But you're getting that 10th tight end like the 12th round versus Kelsey in the second.
Right.
So I think it would be just smarter to build your team in those first few rounds with those running backs and receivers, and then go after the tight end later on with upside.
And even if
again,
go ahead.
If you're going to take a tight end, it's Kelsey. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's either one of those guys. But yeah, so I projected him at 223. If you want to see the rest of our projections on all the other tight ends, please check out the draft guide. $25.
I'm at about 215.
Okay. Let's talk about the next guy, George Kittle, because he's in the conversation. I said, I have him at 125. The big question with Kittle is Jimmy Garoppolo and how he responds. We've seen guys lose Super Bowls and fall off a cliff and all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying George Kittle will do that. Yeah, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff.
Like Matt Ryan, I mean, Cam Newton.
Yeah, the following seasons for those guys just weren't the greatest.
Yeah, but still decent because they were good players, but not where they were.
When you think about, and this is the big thing with San Francisco, is that when you think about the construct of the San Francisco offense, right? Deebo Samuel is going to miss 2 to 4 weeks in the regular season. Book it. I said it right now. July 3rd. He will probably miss a little bit of time at the beginning of the season, right? And then you have Brandon Ayuk, who's probably the second wide receiver on that team, and then Jalen Hurd and Dante Pettis and some other guys. They don't have a great wide receiver core. And with as good as George Kittle is and has been over the last couple years, yes, he's going to get his targets. He's going to get his share of work.
You think he could get a career high in targets this year? He could
probably get a career high in targets. And I think that is the direction that it's trending, just because, would you consider George Kittle the number one target in that offense?
Yeah.
So, if that's the case, then he should get targeted the most.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm at. That. He's not as good catching the football as Travis Kelce is. So I don't know if he can get to, I have Travis Kelce at 105 receptions. I don't know if he can get past that 100 receptions point, but I mean, he's as much of a lock as Travis Kelce is.
If he gets 130 plus targets again, I think he can get 100 receptions. And if he does that, he's right there with Travis Kelce. Yeah, what I love about Kittle too is he's only had 5 career he has 5 touchdowns in 2018 and then 5 touchdowns in 2019.
I projected him at 6 this year.
How many do you have him
at? 6.
If he can get 7, 8 touchdowns,
he could be the tight end 1.
Yeah, I mean, and it's very possible because he's the only target in that offense to start the season. So I do really like Kittle, but I just think Kelce, the value, and I just think Kelce too is just you have a better chance for him getting those touchdowns than you do at Kittle because of the situation in San Francisco and the run heavy offense. But again, if you're going to take a tight end early, it has to be Kelce or Kittle.
Now let's play the where they came off the board game with Kelce and Kittle.
Sure.
So would you rather have Travis Kelce or George Kittle than Chris Godwin?
No.
Mike Evans.
It's
a little closer.
I think I'd rather have Evans, but that's a toss up with Kelce and Evans.
And then you have Kenny Golladay.
I'd rather have Golladay.
Thielen.
See, that's where I kind of start to go. I think I might take Kelce over Thielen. It's toss up though.
And then Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper?
Yep.
I'd rather have Amari Cooper.
Cooper Kupp.
I'd probably go Kelce.
Okay, yeah, because that starts getting into ADP 34. So like I said, if you're talking about late third, early fourth round for some of these tight ends, I think it's justifiable to draft Travis Kelce and George Kittle there. And if I'm in my draft and that's where they are, then that's where I'm going. But I can tell you right now that Travis Kelce and George Kittle are going to be mid to late second round picks. And at that value, it's just not worth it for me. I'd rather build the core structure of my unit and draft a tight end later. Especially
if they fall around, though, I'm willing to take Kelce and Kittle.
Okay. Let's talk about Darren Waller. Or I'm sorry, hold on a second. I'm looking at the wrong sheet. Let's talk about Zach Ertz. So right now, the consensus big three from last year.
Yep.
I guess we have the consensus big three again this year. I have
a lot of hate for that.
We both have Travis Kelce and George Kittle 1 and 2, but I have Zach Ertz at number 4, and you have Zach Ertz at number 3. So, explain why you have him at 3, because I'm curious to see where your head's at with that.
First of all, Ertz had a better year than people thought last year, because people will just be like, "Oh, he disappointed me," and he was terrible because I took him in the third round. That's because he took him in the third round.
Don't take a tight end in the third round.
And he was only 5 points off.
We told you that. We freaking told you that last year. And if you didn't listen, it's not on us.
He was 5 points off from Darren Waller and 1 less game played.
Wow.
And he was only 4 points off from Mark Andrews.
Do you think that's because there's no one there to target, or is that just Zach Ertz being Zach Ertz?
So, no, I think that's just Zach Ertz being Zach Ertz, because in 2018, he had 156 targets. Last year, he only had 135 in 15 games. If he plays a full 16 games, even with Dallas Goedert there, because I think that the Eagles are going to play kind of like the Patriots did a few years ago with Gronk and Hernandez. That's how they like to use 2 tight ends in the passing game. So he's still going to get targets. Alshon Jeffrey's probably going to be on the PUP to start the season. So if that's the case, you have rookie Jalen Reagor, you have old man Deshaun Jackson, and that's it. And then Zach Ertz is going to be the main target, just like Travis Kelce is, and just like George Kittle is.
Okay. That's fair.
I think if Ertz gets 145 targets and he can get 95 to 100 catches, he's going to be the third tight end to me.
Yeah, that's a fair. That's a fair argument. I think the biggest concern for me with Zachary Ertz is his age. I just want to confirm that before I say it out loud. He's 29, so he is on a little bit on the older side. The Eagles are going to have Deshaun Jackson full time back. They hopefully not 6 weeks into the season will have Alshon Jeffrey, but he will miss time at the beginning of the season expected. And then Jalen Reagor, who they just added to the offense. So they tried to add some offensive pieces, and Miles Sanders is good through the air as well. So I think there's some, I think a lot of that is more of a, as much as we have Dallas Goedert on the, I don't know, maybe we should take him off the breakout or sleeper tight ends list.
No, because I think
that's more of an not indictment, but more of a concern for Dallas Goedert than it is for Zach Ertz, because Zach Ertz always gets the target share. So it's if he last year, you were referencing his 15 games and he had 135 targets in those games. And it's why is that going to change? You know what I mean? Paced out for one more week, that had 144 targets, and that's right up there with Travis Kelce. And the only difference between Kelce and Ertz was just efficiency, and so that's if you're looking at Ertz and where he is, I think he's going to finish as a third tight end next year, but there is a good possibility that he could finish as the tight end 1. Now, I have him 4 just because there's another man's I like a little bit more than him, and he's on the younger side, but we'll get to that soon.
No, I get the concern with Zach Ertz because he disappointed a lot of people last year, but he's still going to be really solid, and I think Goedert's still solid. Look at last year. If you look at targets, Zach Ertz was first on the team, and Dallas Goedert was second, and Miles Sanders was third.
Wow.
So they're all involved. Wow. Alshon Jeffrey, again, he only played 10 games last year. I would think he's probably going to only play 10 games this year around there. And then Deshaun Jackson and Jalen Reagor is going to get their targets, but Carson Wentz threw the ball 607 times last year, and I think that's probably going to happen again this year. So if they throw the ball over 600 times, there's going to be enough targets to go around.
Let's play the ADP game again with Zach Ertz, because he's going 45, which is a little better.
Yeah.
You have Allen Robinson at 44.
I'd rather have Allen Robinson.
Keenan Allen at 47.
I'd rather have Zach Ertz.
48, Robert Woods.
Well, that's a toss-up for me.
And then 49, Juju, and 50, Lockett.
I'd rather have Juju, but not Lockett.
I'd rather have Lockett.
He's in that range, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some guys you can take him over, but if you're just assuming you're in the 5th round and you're assuming that Allen Robinson's on the board, Robert Woods, Juju Smith-Schuster, like there are other options besides Zach Ertz. If you're on the board and all of those options are off the board, and then you're not even talking about the running backs on the board and the situation that you're in, like the value is not there. Now, I could see him when things start really cooking to fall a little bit down boards further than the 4th. Like people are going to be hyped up on Andrews. He's already ahead of Zach Ertz. People are going to be hyped up on Waller. They're going to be hyped up on Rob Gronkowski. Don't look at me like that. I know you're like, oh, what are you talking about? But people are going to love Gronk. They're going to be like, let's go. I'm going to go draft Gronk as a 5th tight end off the board. I mean, he's going right now as the 7th, so he's freaking close. And there are just other guys that I think people might jump ahead of to draft over Zach Ertz. But I think that's another sneaky little guy that you might be able to snag in the 5th or 6th round. I'm not a tight end draft early guy, but if he falls far enough, just like if Ertz or Kelsey if Kelsey or Kittle were to fall, I would totally jump on board with drafting them too. So yeah, I mean, I have him 4 because of his age. Mostly. I
mean, it makes sense. And like dynasty-wise, like Zach Ertz is a little less valuable because of his age.
Yeah.
He probably has, and with Dallas Goedert there, who is also younger, I could see Ertz being there for like another 2-3 years maybe, and then they kind of kick him to the curb, unfortunately. Yeah. But that's how it goes in the NFL.
So the 4th guy on our list, Darren Waller. That's consensus. I have Waller 3. You have him 4, so it's the reverse. Waller was insanely good last year in the time that he had, and a lot of there is a strong following that will tell you don't draft Darren Waller this year. Don't go anywhere near Darren Waller because he's gonna bust. And I don't, and that these same people are telling you to run after Mark Andrews, and I don't see it. I really don't. And we'll talk about Mark Andrews in a second, but I love Darren Waller, and the reason why is because last year, in all the games that he played, he had 117 targets, so he almost had 120 targets. He was a target friggin' machine. Outside of Kittle and Kelsey, I think he was 3rd in the league in targets. Or, Kittle, Kelsey, and Ertz, he was 3rd in the league in targets. I think. Maybe Andrews had more. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway.
No, I'm pretty sure Waller had more targets than Mark Andrews.
The biggest thing is... The biggest thing you have to look at, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you have to look at routes run and the snap percentage of the amount of time that guy was on the field. And when you look at Mark Andrews, like I said, we'll get to him in a second. It wasn't high. And Waller was on the field for a majority of that time. Now, there is concerns. They brought in a tight end, right? Jason
Witten, I think.
Yeah, Witten. So Witten is not going to get. That's a Foster Moreau replacement. I'm
right, exactly.
That's not going to be any indictment on Darren Waller. Darren Waller's going to get 120 targets. They love to throw to the tight end position. Yes, they added Henry Ruggs, but Henry Ruggs plays a similar style of offense to Tyreek Hill. So he's not going to get targeted, especially this season in his rookie year, over 125 times. It's not going to happen.
No.
So Waller's going to get between 115 and 120, and I think that makes him a top 5, top 4 tight end. And the biggest thing I love about Darren Waller is the fact that he scored 2 touchdowns last year. Now, that's like, oh, well, why do you like that about him? That's terrible. It's because... I'm sorry. He scored 3 touchdowns last year.
3 touchdowns.
But people are like, "Oh, well, why do you like that?" And you want to know why? It's because he's still finished as a top 5 tight end without any touchdowns. So if he gets the same amount of target share and the same amount of production, and he scores 6-7 touchdowns, I mean, there's no way he doesn't finish as a top 4 tight end. So I'm on board with Darren Waller. His ADP right now is 56, which is very good. Compared to Mark Andrews' ADP of 41. Yeah. I draft Darren Waller over Mark Andrews all day.
Yeah, no, I would too, and we're in the minority with that.
Yep.
I do think Andrews and Waller are close together, but the difference for me is kind of what you alluded to. I mean, Mark Andrews, we'll get to him, but for Darren Waller, he had, like you said, 3 touchdowns last year, 90 catches, over 1,000 yards. So he had a great year, but the 3 touchdowns brought him down fantasy-wise.
Yeah.
I even project him to get a little bit less targets because, I do think Henry Ruggs is with Henry Ruggs there, like, and the Raiders don't throw the ball a whole ton. So I do think he'll get a little less targets and receptions and yards, just by a little bit. But I have him at like 7 touchdowns or 6. I think I have him at 6 touchdowns. Yeah. And just by him going from 3 to 6 touchdowns, he's the 4th tight end on my projections. So, and I do think that's very possible. I mean, 3 touchdowns is low for somebody who gets 90
Where did you have him on your projections?
Like, where do I have him ranked?
Yeah.
Among tight ends, I got to go back to the page. I think I had him 4th.
Yeah, I got him 3rd. I had him 3 points ahead of Ertz, but that's only because
I only have Ertz 3 points ahead of Waller.
I had Waller 3 points ahead of Ertz with 4 touchdowns.
Wow.
115 targets, 85 receptions, and 1,055 yards. Like that's insane to me. Add a couple more touchdowns, and he might be up there. Like so many people. I hate to call. He's not a sleeper at all because he's getting drafted in the 6th round. Not a sleeper at all. But I feel like a lot of people are just completely forgetting and are down on Darren Waller for no particular reason other than Jason Witten or a rookie wide receiver coming in.
Well, that's the thing. Like I do think Waller's receptions might go down a little bit and his yards might go down a little bit because I do think, Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow and I mean I don't know how much Tyrell Williams is going to play this year, but
Renfrow's trash.
None of those guys are going to get. I don't think. Big red zone production.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think any of those guys are going to get a lot of touchdowns. Darren Waller, to me, has the most potential in that offense to get a lot of touchdowns. So, and even if he doesn't, like, Derek Carr threw, like, I think 22 touchdown passes last year.
Wow.
Which is low for even Derek Carr, who's not known for throwing, like, 40 touchdowns, but he usually gets, like, 25, 26. So if you just add those 3-4 touchdowns and give them to Waller, the dude's going to be a beast.
Let's talk about while we're here. Let's talk about Mark Andrews because I have him 5, you have him 5, so we'll get that out of the way.
Sure.
Like Mark Andrews, I really do. I think he's a cute little player.
He's young too. He's gonna be good for a long time.
The big problem with Mark Andrews, and I talked about this last year. Hold on 1 second. I talked about him last year. I'm trying to get to Fantasy Pros. I talked about him last year, and I talked about his snap percentages. And I talked about where he was, in total snap count and how much opportunity he got and how he was only on the field when they intended on targeting him or they intended on him running a route. So it was, on passing downs, he was out there. And for Mark Andrews, do you want to know the average of time that he was on the field last year?
What was it?
It was, where are you, Mark? Don't tell me he's all the way down this list. Don't tell me that. I can't even find him. I can't find him on this list. That's terrible.
Well, while you look for him, I'll say what I don't like about Mark Andrews.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
The average snap percentage for Mark Andrews, 31%. Darren Waller was at 58%. Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, 63 and 61. So you're telling me, fantasy football community, that a 31% snap percentage for Mark Andrews is gonna produce top 3 numbers? Come on, you've got to be kidding me.
I mean, it's possible, but you'd have to do the same.
I don't even want to have him top 5 anymore after seeing that. Disgusting.
You'd have to do the same thing he did last year, and maybe even more. Like, you might have to have 11 touchdowns instead of 10 to get top 3 for tight ends. And the thing I don't like about I still like Andrews.
I'm sorry, really the percentage was 44%. I had the total average per game up.
Who was 44%?
Mark Andrews. So okay. Mark Andrews, 44%. Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, George Kittle, Zach Ertz, all 85 or above.
Oh, really? 85%?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was looking at the count total percentages.
So that's a big. I was gonna say 60 feels low for.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, that is like under 50% versus like 80% is a huge difference.
Note to self: always click the percentages tab.
Yeah, that's what you should have done. But like we talked, if you guys listen to our quarterback show, we did talk about Lamar Jackson and his potential. I mean, we both love Lamar. I like him even more than Morgan does, but I still think he's going to have a touchdown regression. He threw 36 touchdown passes last year with like 450 attempts or something like that. So he had a lot of touchdown passes considering his attempts. I think that's going to go down to like 29 to 25 touchdown passes, somewhere in that range. If that happens, I don't think Mark Andrews is going to get, if Lamar throws like 26 touchdown passes, I don't think Mark Andrews is going to get 10 of those. Like he did last year. He had 10 touchdown receptions. So if he just has like the same year he did last year, which I think he's going to have about because the Ravens don't throw the ball enough. It's like around 100 targets, like 65 catches, 65, 70 catches, 850 yards in that range. But he gets like 6 touchdowns instead of 10. He's going to be like the tight end 6, tight end 7, tight end 5.
I think
he's going to be in that range.
I think the hard part is that you talk about this same conversation. I don't know, man. We might need to add Darren Waller to a bus list. I mean, Mark Andrews to a bus list sometime. If you're talking about a guy, right, who had only a 44% snap percentage.
Yeah.
Like, there is no way in hell he can continue that.
I would honestly consider him a bust right now if he's going in the third round, late third round, which I've seen him in drafts go in the late third round. Like, I just think that's too. The hype for him is real in the fantasy community, and I get it, especially in Dynasty, because he's got Lamar for the next however many years. He's very young. He has a lot of talent in the passing game.
Oh no!
So I
Mark
get the
Andrews
hype
is a bust
in Dynasty. But in redraft here, I just think he's going to disappoint people this year. I really do.
Now that we have enlightened ourselves on Mark Andrews, are you considering changing your rankings?
No, but
okay.
The reason why is because I like when I projected Mark Andrews,
I might have Evan Ingram over him, which is the next guy we're going to talk about.
See,
but
that's
I don't know.
why I wouldn't do, because I just think the next group of tight ends are not in the same category as Waller, Ertz, Kittle, Kelsey.
And
so
Mark
even
Andrews.
though I don't think Andrews is really in that category either, he's at the top of the next group.
Okay, yeah,
Does
that's
that
fair
make
enough.
sense?
I wouldn't disagree with you on that. When you see the next guys, it's kind of more
Like,
Evan Ingram hasn't been able to
get
stay on the field and all of that stuff. So,
right.
when you're talking about, some of the guys further down the list, they all have their question marks, whereas Mark Andrews has produced. Bless you. Mark Andrews has
sick for some reason today.
Oh, great. Coronavirus. Yeah, but I think that's very concerning. You compare it to a similar situation where Aaron Jones, right? People talk about, why is he going to regress, or what's his problem? It's because you talk about the top running backs in the league having a snap percentage of 5% or so, right? 95 to 85%, and you're in the top categories because you're getting all the snaps. Whereas Aaron Jones only was on the field 60% of the time. But the reason why he was explosive and had a really good season last year was just because he was highly efficient. So the efficiency isn't going to line up if he only gets 60% of the snaps next year again. And it's the same thing with Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, just if he's not getting 80% of the snaps because he sucks at blocking or whatever it is, then you're going to have a situation where he's not going to run routes and he's not going to get targets. And it's like it was a situation I talked about in the middle of the season where he's one of those guys that could potentially poop his pants for you on a week-to-week basis just because he doesn't get that target. And it didn't go up as the season went along. It was always hovering right between 42 and 52%. So it's like that's scary to me. I don't know. That I saw that stat the other day and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, that is definitely scary.
So I would say we'll rank him 5 just for the sake of not looking like fools, but
well, at the
end of the season, because
I do believe he's gonna finish in between like 5 to 7, in that range. So, but I'm finally putting him in.
But when you're with that in your mind, what I just said, Mark Andrews at ADP of 41 as a third tight end off the board, are you okay with that?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
No.
So, I would say avoid at all costs Mark Andrews unless he falls to the 6th or 7th round. Which is not going to happen. So avoid Mark Andrews. Let's talk about the number 6 guy. Evan Ingram wrote for another publication, The Undroppables, an article for Evan Ingram's Liz Frank foot injury. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I believe so.
So go check that out on his page. We'll plug you, Adam. You're welcome. But so Evan Engram, obviously, so many injuries. I don't want to go over them. That is why he's 6. He's so talented. He's unbelievably talented. And he finally has a quarterback who can throw a football.
I'm glad you finally joined the disrespect Eli train.
I think people disliked Eli for the sake of disliking Eli. I don't think they.
But I think in Eli's last year and last 2 years, he really, in my opinion, he didn't really have anything left.
He wasn't horrible. He just wasn't good either. He was mediocre. I would take him over 12, 15 guys in the NFL. Not right now, but back then. So anyway, you saw him play 9 games last year, and if you pace out those 9 games to the rest of the season, he gets 136 targets, 88 receptions, 6 touchdowns, 934 yards. He looks like a top 4 tight end, a Darren Waller, a Mark Andrews from last year. The question is, does he have the ability to stay on the field? And that is the hardest thing about Evan Engram, which is why he's 6 on our list. Right now he's going in the 8th round, early 8th round, late 7th, at pick 70. His snap percentage, if you want to know what that is, 80%. So he's on the field, roughly the same amount as a Zach Ertz or Greg Olsen or a Ryan Griffin, OJ Howard from last year. Which is I think it's top 7 in snap percentage. So he was on the field for a majority of the time when he was playing. Just the concerns with injury are the biggest problem with Evan Engram. But I mean, for me, I would consider taking him in the 8th round if I had to. I mean, there's other guys I want to take. Yeah. So, but if you want to take a tight end,
his upside is there.
8th round's totally fine. And for Evan Engram, I mean, 6 on this list. The only reason why I have Mark Andrews ahead of him is because of injuries.
Yeah, I mean but it's a valid concern with Evan Engram because he only played 8 games last year, and the year before that he only played 11. He has not played a full 16 games in his 3-year career so far.
Yeah.
But last year he was on pace for a
very good season. Yeah.
Around 90 catches, almost 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. He would have been in the same category as a Darren Waller last year. So he would have been the 3rd, 4th, 5th tight end in that range.
And I have him projected at number 5 at tight end, 143 fantasy points with only 115 targets. So that could totally end up being where he ends up at, but he could also end up at 125, 130 targets like we have him paced out at. And that would give him a really great season. I think I just broke my projection sheet by accident. Copy pasted a name into a place I shouldn't have. But anyway.
No, I like Evan Engram, but there's 2 concerns for me. One is obviously the injuries, but even if he is healthy, are there going to be enough targets to go around with the Giants? There's Darius Slayton, there's Golden Tate, there's Sterling Shepard, there's Saquon Barkley. So there's a lot of bodies to feed for Daniel Jones, who we think has the upside of being really good, but I mean, we'll see this year. So I do like Evan Engram. Hold on, I got to blow my nose for the 10th time this show. This is getting annoying.
That's fine. Let's move on to the next guy, unless you have anything else to say about Evan Engram.
I'm good, dude.
Okay. So number 7 on our consensus is Hawk. I have him 7. You have Hawkinson 9. Which is a little bit of a discrepancy, but it's just how he landed on our average projections. I mean, on our average rankings. Yeah. So I am a slightly higher on Hawk than you are. One guy that I didn't rank at all, and he didn't fall into our consensus because I ranked him solo, is Tyler Higbee. And I'm not going to talk about on this program why I don't think Tyler Higbee should be ranked in the top 10, but he is not going to fall into our top 10.
He's somebody who I probably I might move him down a few spots.
Consensus has him where you kind of have him, but I was just kind of feeling that he's not going to be what would be.
I just think there's going to be. I mean, I'll just quickly say I think there's going to be enough targets there to go around.
Okay. So anyway, Hawkinson at number 7 on our consensus, and we can talk about the discrepancies as to why there's a difference. Hawkinson last year came onto the scene. I mocked. We had a team in our league who drafted TJ Hawkinson very, very early, and I was like, ugh, what are you doing, dude? I made fun of him. And then week one, rookie tight end, week 1, he went out and it was an absolute monster.
Yeah, monster. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, whoa, what's going on? 9 targets, 6 receptions, 131 yards, 1 touchdown. He looked like a freaking beast. And I was like, oh, my goodness, if this guy turns into something, it could get interesting. But through the 12 games TJ Hawkinson played before he got injured, he had 59 targets, 32 receptions. And so if you pace that out through, past 12 games, 79 targets, 43 receptions was not bad at the tight end position. Now, you have to look forward with Hawkinson instead of backwards. Hawkinson's probably going to get a lot more opportunity going into the season. He was a top 10 pick. We have to remember that. His
overall, right?
His snap percentage last year, Hawkinson was at 63%. So my thing with Hawkinson is that that'll probably increase, and with that increasing, that means his number of routes run is going to increase as well. And when that happens, obviously it equals more targets, more opportunity. With a guy as talented as TJ Hawkinson, as big as he is, he's going to get the opportunity. Yeah. I don't know if he can reach 125 targets just because of the Marvin Joneses and you got Kerryon Johnson still there. You have DeAndre Swift who might get some targets. You have Kenny Golladay who's going to get targets. So it's there are guys in that offense. I think Hawkinson could be the 3rd guy down the list, which is very good. And it's breakout tight end-esque. He could be the Darren Waller of this season, the Mark Andrews of this season. But it remains to be seen if he can be. And if he's going to get that opportunity. When you start talking about some of the guys lower on our consensus list, they're guys who, we look at as very good players that could break out and break onto the scene this year, but just probably, could not this year, but also have opportunity to really do it. And I think it's just a matter of opportunity. Do you see him exceeding the 80 targets that he got last year if he played a full 16?
Yeah, not by a lot, but I do see him getting, a few more targets, maybe 15 to 20 more targets.
Okay.
The thing I love about Hawkinson this year, we've talked about him multiple times on this show before, so I'll keep it brief, but I like his red zone upside, first of all. He dropped a few touchdowns last year, which, you can just look at rookie mistakes. Mm-hmm. If Matt Stafford plays a full 16 games, which, we're going on the expectation that he does, he'll probably throw for around 30 touchdowns. And I think TJ Hawkinson, along with Kenny Golladay, are going to eat most of those touchdowns. They're going to get a lot of those. I could easily see Hawkinson getting around 7 to 8 touchdowns this year. So even though I don't think he's going to have the same amount of targets as maybe a Darren Waller or an Evan Ingram if he stays healthy, his touchdown production gives him the chance to have that top 5 ceiling for tight ends. And I think projection wise, even though I have him ranked 9th, projections, I think I have him finishing 7th among tight ends.
Okay.
So same spot as you.
Yeah.
So
I have him 8, I think, in my projections.
Hawk, especially long term. Yeah, so I think he'll finish around that range. But long term, he's going to be really, really good. And this year, he's going to be really, really good. But he's going to have to rely on touchdowns, I think. Which I say that loosely because I think he will be able to, even though that is important for him. Because if he gets 2 or 3 touchdowns, he's not gonna. He's probably not going to be a great tight end option. He'll probably be a bust.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a shot in the dark, especially when you talk about a little bit later in the draft, a TJ Hawkinson at 146, ADP, and going maybe undrafted altogether. What from TJ Hawkinson and the fact that he's a top 10 pick in the 2018 or was it 2019 draft?
Yeah, he was 8th overall, not 10th overall.
I said top 10. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, so if he, he's a top 10 pick, he, had almost 80 targets paced out to a full season last year or around that total. He caught the ball at a good percentage, around 60%. So it's just a matter of him learning, the offense, getting out there. And if he's the second, third option in that offense, there's no way that he doesn't have a really great season. I mean, he has all the measurables. He literally is he's set up for a really good year one.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to watch for. So it's like, go out and snag him.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
All right, let's talk.
It's definitely worth the spot that he's going at.
Let's talk about the next guy and Noah Fant on our consensus. I'm sorry. It is Hunter Henry on our consensus. Now, I don't have Hunter Henry ranked in my top 10.
Yeah.
You have Hunter Henry at 7. I think Hunter Henry is going to be a complete bust. And I think it's because Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback and the Chargers offense. I'm not really at this point with Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry. And, the only thing I'm really buying in that offense is Austin Eckler. And I think there's just, in the passing game, there's no one that you can really rely on to have a big season. Hunter Henry is talented. He's good. He's an extremely good tight end. But I think that people are going to purchase him at a high value this year. Hunter Henry at pick 82 in the 9th round. Like, that is gross to me. So I'm off the Hunter Henry train. I'm not willing to take a guy who, can't really stay on the field, to be honest with you, and who hasn't really shown, even with Phillip Rivers, who loves throwing it to tight ends, that he can have monster success. So, we haven't seen it from him, and I think now that you change the quarterbacks out, with Tyrod Taylor coming in, it's just going to be hard for Hunter Henry to do some of the talented things that he showed that he can do last year.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I do think Hunter Henry is another really talented tight end, though, when he's healthy. When he's out there, he's very efficient, great red zone option, great player. But even ignoring that, and we'll talk about the situation, you don't have him in the top 10 because of reasons that you just said, which includes Tyrod Taylor. And I think that's, it's fair.
If you buy the draft guide, you can find out where he's ranked.
Yeah. Yeah. But the reason why I like Hunter Henry a lot more than you is, for one, Tyrod Taylor, I think, is going to utilize that short passing game, which is going to be heavily involved with an Austin Eckler and a Hunter Henry. I think it hurts more like a Mike Williams, who's kind of the vertical threat, who Mike Williams was a bust last year anyway. So I don't think anybody's going to be drafting him early. But I think Hunter Henry's targets will go down. But I think he's going to be very efficient still. So I still think he can get like 60, 65 catches around like 700 plus yards, and he gets like 6 touchdowns, which would put him at like the tight end 7, 8 in that range. So I still think he's going to be solid. I think what hurts the Chargers more with Tyrod Taylor is Mike Williams, the Keenan Allen, those guys. And there's also like really, I mean, it's Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry. Those 4 guys, their 5th option. Probably Andre Patton. He's probably not going to get any more than 40 targets. Like they're only going to throw to like 4 different guys the whole season. Yeah. So I think
that's fair.
He should get a decent amount of opportunity. And also, if Justin Herbert comes in at any time during the season, I think that would only
that would benefit him.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens. I have him at 104 fantasy points at tight end 16 with only 72 targets.
Wow. Yeah, I've met 90 targets. So I think that's a difference. How many touchdowns do you have?
4.
Yeah, see, I have him at 6.
I just don't think I really don't think that Hunter Henry's going to have all that much success inside that. And we both have him as a bust, but
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't draft him. I'd probably stay away from him, but I don't think he's going to be awful. Like that's the only difference. But I have him. I'm a little more confident in him, but I still wouldn't go out of my way to get him on my team this year.
Let's talk about the number 9 guy. Me and Rick are both going out of our way to get this guy, Mike Gesicki. I have him ranked 9. You have him ranked 10. So we're right there with Gesicki. I'm curious to see. I want to pull up the consensus ranks for tight end.
I don't think he's in the top 12. I wouldn't be surprised. Or if he is, he's like 12.
Fantasy Pros website's not loading, so frick me. Anyway, let's talk about Mike Gesicki. So Gesicki's the same kind of situation as Hawk. He doesn't have the draft capital that was assigned to him, but he is a freak athlete. He's big. He looks like Gronk. He has the same catch radius. Like, he is literally the white version. I mean, not white version, but the Miami version. I just called all Miami white. Miami version of Mike Gesicki. I mean, of Rob Gronkowski. So I think he has the talent. And the way Fitzpatrick targets the tight end position, if he plays a full season, you could see Mike Gesicki's 13 consensus right now, by the way. I
just pulled that up.
I was like, it took me forever to get there. But you could see Gesicki get targeted a lot in this offense and have a really, really big breakout season. And I think that's because, you talk about what the Miami Dolphins have to pass the football to. They have Devontae Parker. We know that. He's going to be there. And the second guy is Preston Williams, who is unproven, and he's an unproven talent at this point. And we know that he's going to get some opportunity this year, but it's, between Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki, who do you think is going to, Ryan Fitzmagic is going to throw the football to? I think it's going to be Mike Gesicki. So if he's the second target in that offense, you could see really good things. Now, if you look at, I'm just going to pull a random sample size from when he started catching getting targeted 6 times or more a game, which started in week 8. He had 114 targets, 64 receptions, 741 yards, and 9 touchdowns, which would have pegged him in the conversation as a top 5 tight end last year. Because he didn't do that the full season, obviously it hurt him. When you look
he struggled, in the beginning.
When you look at Gesicki over the last few games of the season from that time, week 10, he had 61 snap percentage, 86 in week 11, 90 in week 12, 74 in week 13, 70 in week 14, 77 in week 15, 64 in week 16, and then 75% in week 17. Averaged 65% over the course of the whole season. But if you gave him that average of what he did over the last 6 to 10 weeks of the season, you could definitely see him in the conversation of a 71 to 80% snap percentage, which puts him, right around the top 15. So for me, Gesicki's going to be out there. He's going to get the opportunity. And with Fitzmagic as quarterback, I think even with Tua as quarterback, he's going to get targeted because he's a big, bulking, large catch radius tight end.
It's actually favorable for a rookie quarterback as well to have a guy like Gesicki at tight end. Between those weeks that you said, weeks 10 to 17 last season, he was the 8th tight end in fantasy. So I think that's probably where he's going to end up this year.
Oh, boy.
His consensus is 13. I think you're getting a steal in like those 12th, 13th round, which I think is where he's going right now.
Yeah.
And his third year as a tight end. It's similar to kind of like Hooper last year. The only difference is I think he's not going to get quite the same amount as Austin Hooper, because the Atlanta Falcons offense is just much better than the Miami Dolphins offense, but he's going to play a similar role. He is the second option in that offense behind Devontae Parker. So I think he can get like 100 targets this year. So last year he had 89 targets, 51 catches, 5 touchdowns. I think this year he can get like 100 targets, 60 catches, 6 to 7 touchdowns, and maybe like 650 yards. And that would put him that'd probably put him around the tight end at 8, which is where I feel like he's going to go. And he's got the upside. If like, let's say Tua comes in and Tua plays well and more efficient than like Ryan Fitzpatrick, or if Ryan Fitzpatrick plays like he did kind of in the last week of the season against the Patriots, but what he's done in the past, where he'll like sneakily get a lot of fantasy value and throw for a lot of yards at least. Then Gesicki has that potential to be a top 5 tight end.
You can rob your fantasy compadres in your league and draft Mike Gesicki in the late rounds while that moron is drafting Travis Kelce.
In the first round.
No offense, in the first round.
Because you're not a moron if you draft Travis Kelce.
In the third round, No. But anyway, Gesicki, I think he's on our sleeper list, but might be transitioning to our breakout list by the draft guide to find out where he actually is and what we think about him fully. Number 10 on our list is Noah Fant, the consensus. Now I have Fant at 8. You have Fant at 11.
I have him at 11. Yeah, I think I'm going to move him up to 10 though.
Okay. So the big thing about Fant, and he has good ADP. His value is good. He's in the same conversation with Hawk and Gesicki in terms of where you're drafting him. And these are guys, Hawk, Fant, and Gesicki are 3 guys that we would suggest you draft in the later rounds and then save your draft picks away from don't draft Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Zach Ertz, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, Evan Engram, those guys. You can kind of, Evan Engram maybe, but stay away from the top 5 to build the core of your roster, and then take one of these tight ends a little bit later in the draft so that you have a guy who could be a stud next year.
Right.
So Noah Fant, obviously, he had a decent 2019 campaign in his first rookie season. I told you
rookie very solid.
For a rookie, it was very, very solid, just like T.J. Hawkinson. Now, the class of tight ends, Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkinson in last year's class were just the top 2 guys. Right. When you look at his numbers, he had 66 targets or so through the course of the entirety of the 2019 season. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Mark Andrews because his snap percentages were a little bit lower. And I think that was just because
I think they went up, though. If you can check that for, I don't know if you can, but for like the second half,
he was at 69%, so a little higher than Gesicki on average. So that's actually pretty good. But it actually went down as the season went along.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so interesting.
I assumed it would go the other way.
Yeah. So anyway, but he was right around 60 to 80% depending on the week. So I think for me, the big thing that I want to see is what he did when Drew Lock took over, and I want to just see when that game was. So let me do that real fast. But give me your thoughts on Noah Fant.
Yeah, I love Noah Fant. I love the talent, and I love that he's got a young quarterback to go with him for the next 10 plus years or however long he's going to be with Denver. I like the situation. The only problem I have with Noah Fant is just, and the reason I have him a little bit lower than you is just because how many targets is he going to get this year with Cortland Sutton there, with Jerry Jeudy there, KJ Hamler now there.
No, that's fair.
Melvin
Hamler,
Gordon
I'm not
going to get targets. And I don't know how many times. Do you think Denver's going to throw the ball 600 times this year?
Yeah.
They might, but I wouldn't be confident in that. If Denver throws the ball like 580 to 600 times, even 560, like anywhere between 560 to 600 times, I think Noah Fant will have that top 5 potential ceiling because I think he's probably going to be the second or third option.
Yeah.
It's either going to be him or Jerry Jeudy. And if Drew Lock has Noah Fant's just a wild card because you don't know what Drew Lock is the problem. If Drew Lock has a breakout season like some of the fantasy community thinks, like it's pretty split. If he does have a breakout year and he throws like 20-something touchdowns or 30 touchdowns in that range, then Fant is going to be fantastic this year and even better than I think he is or you think he is. But if Drew Lock is just a flash in the pan last year and he just had a couple good games and he ends up playing the full year and he's like Baker Mayfield was last year, then Fant is not going to be fantasy relevant. Really.
Now,
or he will be still, but he'll be like.
I want to give you the facts. I don't want our community to be confused.
Give me the facts. As I blow my nose again.
And I don't like this at all. But Drew Lock, when he took over for quarterback week 13 through 17, he had an average of 3 targets a game, and he only had 45 targets paced out on a whole season. For 32 receiving yards. Now his yards per reception was insanely high at 18, which means that, the guy gets targeted 80 times and he catches 60 balls or something like that. He could actually be like 1,000 yards receiving and a couple of touchdowns, but it just depends on how Drew Lock plays. I think he had more success under Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco likes to throw it to the tight end position. And I don't know if I personally think behind Jeudy and behind Sutton, he is probably the third target in that offense. But there is an argument to be made that he could be the fourth, which is a little bit more concerning, which is why I would take Hawkinson and Gesicki and some of those guys ahead of Noah Fant. But you have to peg it as he's on the field for a lot of the time. If they pass it with Drew Lock, he could get the opportunity. And in the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th round, it's a great pick.
Yeah. No, I agree. He's a great late round value because of the potential upside. Mm-hmm. But I think of these 3 guys, of Gesicki, Hawkinson, and Fant, I think Fant has the best chance of not playing well. Just for this year, kind of like the Browns. I compare them to the Browns because I think there's a lot of hype for Denver's offense this year. And I think it can be really good, but it also can be
really bad
to some teams. Not really bad, but just disappointing.
Yeah.
Or it could be really good. It's just a wild card is the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will say Drew Lock didn't really throw the ball a lot, I don't think, which could be why Font didn't have a ton of targets.
Mm-hmm.
The only game where he threw a lot was week 14, I think, against the Chiefs. He had 40 pass attempts. So I want to see how many targets Font got in that game. But yeah, he didn't really target Font a whole lot.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just because he was a young quarterback and he was just kind of throwing to his first reads. Yeah, Font, it doesn't say how many targets he got. He had 2 catches in that game, so I'm assuming he didn't have a lot of targets. So yeah, I don't know if that's just because Drew Lock doesn't like throwing to tight ends. He doesn't have great chemistry with Font, or if it's just because he was just a rookie quarterback throwing to his first read or throwing to whoever the coaching staff said, which was whoever was open. So I don't know. That's the problem with all of Denver's players, but no Font in particular, because we're talking about him right now. But it's just, you don't know with Denver this year, and you don't know if it's going to be good. You don't know.
A little bit of uncertainty.
There's a lot of uncertainty.
It might be worth the risk in the later rounds.
It is worth the risk, especially where he's going. Yeah.
Well, that completes our list of the top 10 tight ends. If you would like to buy the rest of these, feel free. Go to the fantasychampions.com and go to the draft guide page and buy the draft guide to see the rest of them. Thank you for listening to this episode. Check our website out and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We'll see you on Tuesday, my friends.
Later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.